Director Dan Trachtenberg takes his third crack at Yautja lore with Predator Badlands, and this time the protagonist is the galaxy's most notorious trophy hunter himself. It's a pretty wild shift in perspective for the franchise, but it's one that I think Trachtenberg pulls off. I'm Clint Gage, and this is my review of Predator Badlands. After Prey and Predator Killer of Killers got Hulu-only releases, the Yautja are finally back on the big screen. Predator Badlands follows Dek, a little brother, runt of the litter, as he's exiled from his clan and on the deadliest planet in the galaxy trying to earn his stripes. Well, his stripes and a cloaking device.
Welcome to the most dangerous planet in the universe.
It's a rite of passage storyline that should sound familiar, which is exactly why it works so well for this movie and the point of view change it's attempting. And listen, it's hard to flesh out mythology like this. Being 7 movies deep into a franchise that's had a handful of twists and turns and failures, deciding where to shift focus is a near impossible task. Trachtenberg's answer to that is actually a pretty elegant solution, which is just to say, you know, just being a little brother can be hard. Dan Trachtenberg's track record, his Dan Trachten record, shows that he knows how to build a good movie. His films are structured with clean and simple storylines, but he stages sequences so well and blocks scenes so efficiently, puts a camera in all the right places to get the most out of those simple premises. Badlands is yet another example in his filmography of doing all the small things right. These small personal details get set up early in the movie, like the reason Dek's missing a fang and what that means to him and his brother, that come back to play an important role in the plot later on. It's simple but effective filmmaking, textbook even. Trachtenberg steals from the best too. There's always a few shots that are lifted straight from Spielberg built into his movies. Weirdly enough, it's been The Lost World a few times, so keep an eye out for that in Badlands. But most importantly, there's always a relatable, emotional core to what Trachtenberg is doing. That's what made Prey and Killer of Killers such novel entries into the Predator canon. Amber Midthunder's Naru and Killer of Killers casts of poor frozen bastards from across time all had proper emotional reasons to fight and survive. Dek in Badlands is no different. The other half of the protagonist duo is Dek's new Weyland-Yutani synth pal, Thea.
I need a hand.
Elle Fanning is programmed to be an aw shucks kind of synthetic that ultimately learns as much from Dek as he does from her. She's got this hard-coded good nature that takes her on a similar emotional journey as her new Yautja bestie. And she's got this wholesome quality that I don't think has been seen in the Predator franchise outside of some of the quieter, kind of family-based moments in Trachtenberg's other 2 Predator entries.
Well, good luck with your journey.
And by the end of the movie, though, Thea does have some of the most charming and creative ass-kicking in the whole story, and Fanning really pulls it off. But the ass-kicking that had me chuckling and giddy, that was all Dek's. There's a moment in the final act that had me literally pointing at the screen saying, yes, that is the Predator. And granted, it came a little late in the runtime, but it's definitely there. The fighting in this movie is a mix of clever uses of their surroundings and brutal head stomping, which, by the way, is how I would describe the action in all the best parts of Predator as a franchise. But to stay on the ass-kicking for a second, that they're on a distant alien planet is really the only reason this movie is PG-13. As the first non-R-rated Yautja hunt, Badlands still goes pretty hard. The biggest difference is that it's all alien gore splashing around. If it were people, like it was in Prey and Killer of Killers even, the brutality with which Dek goes about his business would be an easy R rating. Aesthetically speaking, the creature design is pretty good. The alien death planet is populated with ravenous flora and fauna, and while they compare unfavorably to the creatures of Avatar, for example, they are better than most. And there's something very engaging about Dek and Thea encountering one deadly thing after another, learning a quick and important fact about them, then killing and eating them. And nothing dies the same way. All those vine things we see him fighting in the trailer, for example, not a single one of them gets a repeat dispatching. Seems like there's a lot of thought put in on how to continue to be creative with how the Predator kills things. And to be fair, there's also a certain amount of, and hold on to your shoulder cannons here, cuteness in this movie. Now it makes sense and it moves the story along, so it's not cuteness just to sell toys or shill a new ride at Disneyland, but it is ironically an alien idea in a Predator movie. Some of it works, of course, and some of it doesn't, but Dek is such an earnest young Yautja. The kid tries to make a joke at one point. It's one of the moments that doesn't really work, but it plays as that overly literal style of humor you get from characters like the Terminator. He's just programmed a certain way, and he's slowly learning a different way. But even though the joke didn't fully land, I appreciate the effort. And once you open the door to the Yautja having a language, they can immediately start telling you who they are. And from there, it's no surprise that Dek is a unique specimen among his clan, a little different from the rest, which is fine because how boring would that be if they were all the same? And look, I'm here for that. I mean, I'm not here for that. I mean, take a swing. And these moments, these little weird moments, are the ones that really tell you how you actually feel about a movie. If you're willing to go with it, then the rest of the movie is doing something that's really right for you. But if you're rolling your eyes, the movie's got bigger problems. Now, ultimately, the rest of this movie did it for me. So even though that joke didn't really land, whatever, I appreciate the effort. Trachtenberg and the screenwriters take great pains to portray Dek as eager to prove himself and passionate about the Yautja way of life, but also a little worried about his place in it. And actor Demetrius Schuster-Kaloa Matangi manages a subtlety in his performance that makes Dek a downright relatable dude. He's not really any less strong, less violent, or more gore-averse than any Predator that's been on screen so far. He's out for vengeance. He loves stabbing his prey in the head and bathing in its viscera, but also, he's mad. He's a little petulant, even. He's smart and capable and underestimated. It's the same story we saw with Naru from Prey. They even repurposed a line of dialogue from Prey to drive that point home, making Dek's story a very familiar one, surrounded by equally familiar imagery from the Yautja ship and weapons to the Alien franchise Easter eggs. But that's exactly what's needed to shift the POV. You need the familiar to get away with the new. And one of those new things is the Yautja Codex, which we got our first peek at in Killer of Killers. Badlands gives us another look at these biblical commandments that guide the entire culture of the hunters. And even though there was a divided reaction to Arnold Schwarzenegger's Dutch and Danny Glover's Harrigan showing up in a post-release post-credit Killer of Killers scene, which I believe set the record for the furthest post-credits a post-credit scene has ever actually landed. Point is, I like what Trachtenberg and his team are doing here. Now, there is something to be said for not revealing too much of your monster. It's the don't show the shark rule of filmmaking. But as much as the last 3 entries in this franchise have added to the lore, there's still plenty we don't know about the Yautja. But Trachtenberg isn't only interested in breaking new ground. Badlands makes great use of everything Predators have done to be interesting in the 40 years since that original ugly motherfucker first blew up a jungle and all the special ops badasses in it.
You're one ugly motherfucker.
In fact, the thing Badlands seems to understand better than anything else is that there are only so many ways you can do, oh no, what are these giant things that are trying to kill us, before that well runs dry.
Would you like to meet a predator? Ha!
After all, there are literal decades worth of movies that failed to live up to the first one. And Dan Trachtenberg cracked the code a little with Prey by giving the protagonist something to prove. And Killer of Killers took the next step by digging a little further into the culture of the Predators, and the natural progression from there is putting a Yautja in the protagonist's seat with a chip on his shoulder. These 3 movies are basically an equation. Prey multiplied by Killer of Killers equals Badlands. And so, Predator Badlands is getting an 8. I had a lot of fun with this movie, and Dan Trachtenberg is heading in an interesting direction with this franchise, so he gets bonus points for that. The Predator, as a mysterious murder monster, is getting some specifics added to his backstory, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Badlands, in shifting the perspective to a Yautja main character, actually highlights what's been great about this franchise in the moments that it really works. Dek and Thea are an unexpectedly fun pairing that bring a new energy to the franchise and an altogether different kind of hunt. It might not be pulling the skull and spine out of us and screaming in bloody victory, but it gets close. So that's what I thought of Predator Badlands. It was fun, guys. Had a lot of fun. Let me know what you think of the Predator franchise as a whole. Check out our exhaustive Predator timeline to catch up before you go check out Badlands. And as always, subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.